Hey everyone, so since we had a few new units out, I thought we'd do another tier list for Monmate Master Idle Adventure. So I've got this one set up a bit differently. We have our meta tier for the meta units, then I have water, burn, and poison tiers. This is going to be for like your base team for those elements. The SS and S tiers are units you can swap in anywhere. A tier going to be some kind of crappier units. F tier you just don't want to use. And then we got some units that aren't out yet, so Abyssinia, Tenrai Ryu, and Stellord. So let's get right into it. First off, we got Drillum going into S tier. He absorbs petrification to stack his defense up like crazy, gives himself harden on his basic attacks, and his rage skill buffs his basic attack and gives him shield. And he gets 5 harden stacks at the start of the battle and gains a 300% shield at 15 stacks. Supet is up next going into Poison tier. She cleanses herself when dealing damage to enemies with Madness, inflicts poison. Her rage skill damages 3 enemies and inflicts Madness while also reducing their attack and defense. And the first time she deals damage, she'll inflict Madness and they'll also take extra damage. Now you could have her in S tier because Madness is just really helpful at the start of the game. Got Hydrill up next going into Meta tier. So she removes all negative effects on herself and gives herself a shield which will heal her after. Her passive allows HP to be converted to a shield at a 1-to-2 ratio, almost 1-to-2, really crazy. She'll also be stacking up damage resist and handing out slow debuffs, just really good tank here. Keeps herself alive and shielded up, just easily the best tank in the game right now. Hey, little interruption from my sponsor. If you're spending in the game, make sure to check out my affiliate code from Aptoid. It'll get you 10 to 30% back on your in-game purchases. That bonus you get back into your wallet, you can then spend on more packs in the game. So if you're interested, there will be a link in the description below with a video showing you how to use it. Now back to the tier list. Next up, we have the first UR in the game, which was Phoenix going into Burn tier. She does AoE damage, buffs her attack speed, reduces enemy attack speed, and buffs her rage generation and leech when below 35% HP. Spit Queen is going into A tier. Probably shouldn't even go into their skills for A tier just to save some time. Dravery is also going into A tier, although you can use her in a burn team at the start of the game. Anguish I'm going to put into the water tier. Her basic attacks can deal extra damage, she heals allies directly behind her while buffering their damage resist, and she heals an ally every 3 seconds. Pibear up next going into burn team, although he's going to drop off very quickly. Like if you can use any tanks in the S tier or even the A tier, you probably don't want to use Pibear. He inflicts burns and reduces enemy attack and attack speed, and when he dies, his rage skill knocks enemies airborne, which is a short stun. A Quadra up next going into A tier. Next up we have Windeer going into the water tier. After hit with a passive 5 times, enemies get stunned for 4 seconds, which is pretty long. And his passive has a 50% chance to trigger when they receive slow. His rage skills an AoE that reduces enemy attack speed and also inflicts slow. Next we have Darkwine also going into the water tier. She gains a rage generation buff when enemies with Madness die. Her rage skill deals damage over time while inflicting multiple slow stacks and inflicts slow at the start of the battle. Every time an enemy gets slowed, she gains rage generation buff and applies Madness when enemies hit 5 slow stacks, then buffs their damage. So Madness is going to make enemies attack anybody. Seraphine up next going into SS tier. I couldn't quite put her in meta. Like she could go in meta probably at the back end. She is really hard to star up unless you're wailing out, so I just couldn't put her in there because everybody in meta you can use custom shards on. Can't use custom shards for Seraphine. But when her passive triggers, so does her rage skill. She heals with her basic attacks, which is pretty good. Her skill grants charge and harden stacks and absorbs a good chunk of the damage they receive. Her passive restores a rage when allies lose HP and can turn damage received into healing, which is nuts. She's kind of like a support and a tank, mostly support, like healing is what you use her for. But like I said, she's 100% pay to win, so I couldn't put her in meta. Especially now that Hydrill's out, gonna be healing herself like crazy, shielding herself like crazy, drawing all the attention. But Seraphine's still really good. Thunderkin up next going into A tier. A tiers in no particular order, by the way. Voltafe going into S tier. His rage skill triggers his awakened skill, which damages enemies. His basic attack lowers enemy attack speed. Rage skill deals high damage, then he cleanses himself. And his passive increases the damage an enemy takes every 7 seconds. Boomrat going into A tier. Sbeed, aka Psychofly, because I think I have Psychofly down. Yeah, I do, right here. She's right there. Just another unit they changed the name of. Like Hydrill was Jellian, I think, and then changed it to Hydrill. So Sbeed is Psychofly. Her rage skill can either damage a group, inflicting debuffs, or attack a single low HP target multiple times. Probably going to want to use the first one though. Her passive buffs the next attack after every 5th instance of damage dealt, which increases with the debuffs on the enemy. Plus gives her an attack speed buff and lets her use her skill again. So you wanted her to hit multiple people with her skill, so you use the trait that just comes with her naturally. Pretty damn good, but not the best. I have been testing her. I've seen more damage come from a different unit. In all my testing, like I need to find a better spot because they kind of trade off damage. Like either one of them will die sooner than the other. So, and then Guild Boss isn't exactly the best place to test her because there's only one enemy, but she's up there for sure. Sparkgar going into A tier. Chiburai going into A tier. The best doggo, pretty good at the beginning of the game. Rortar also going into A tier. Tremagon is going into S tier. He can do extra basic attacks, gains hardened stacks, hits mid-range enemies, and reduces their attack speed, attack, and rage generation, and then buffs himself with rage, damage resist, and shield once per battle. Really good tank, probably second only to Hydrill. Drillum did not perform. He was apparently really good in the beta, doesn't perform that way in the actual game. Flaminator is going into the burn tier. Her basic attacks can deal extra damage, she inflicts burns, of course. She also dashes to the enemy backline and knocks the unit airborne, which is basically a stun. Her passive gives her a free rage skill at the start of the battle, and she buffs allies every 3 basic attacks with either attack, lifesteal, or making their basic attack reduce enemy attack speed. Safe place to put your SP shards, like your SP custom shards into if you're running a burn team. Kira up next, heading to a poison tier, get her at the front. After her rage skill, she gets a ton of dodge and reduces enemy attack speed. She poisons, she can buff her damage by 50% and attack speed by 500%, which is absolutely freaking wild. And then she'll lock onto an enemy, just hitting them repeatedly. She can apply all damage over time on an enemy after hitting them 5 times, which with that attack speed buff is really easy. There's a great damage dealer for a poison team. Next we got Mimiclown going into S tier. You can, like same with Supet, she fits more into a poison. Mimiclown definitely could be in the burn team, 100%. But he's also very useful, especially like an early game, just for his skill set. So he's got a surprise skill that I don't think has a skill description, but based off of what his passive is, surprise is a madness debuff. He burns and his madness makes enemies attack anything nearby, like we already said. Also, you take less damage from enemies with it. And yeah, so he could go into burn team, but madness is good for everybody. I tried to make it so each faction had 5 units. Otherwise, I'd throw them in there too. And I tried to give everybody a tank and a healer. I don't think there is, like besides Flicker Tree, I don't think there is a healer for burn though. Phantomoth up next, also going into poison tier. She applies poison stacks damage twice whenever it's applied. She herself applies poison, deals damage while giving all enemies 2 stacks of poison and allies lifesteal. And then she poisons all enemies when she dies as well. Pretty good unit for a poison team. Actually a vital unit for a poison team. Lavanon up next, going into burn. She might be a little bit worse than Phoenix now. She used to be so good. They nerfed her pretty bad. She does more damage based on burn stacks. She hits super hard still. Her basic attack can hit multiple enemies, and she can also reduce enemy attack speed. It's just that Phoenix has a rage generation and lifesteal, just to help keep her alive even longer. And like I said, the burn team doesn't exactly have a healer, so I think she's more important for a burn team. Floofy is in poison, and she's actually pretty decent. She buffs the team with 15% damage and damage resist, inflicts poison. I'm having a hard time saying some words. Inflicts poison, heals all allies, and increases poison damage taken by enemies, which is awesome. Next up, we have Plant Armor. I was gonna put him into poison. It was a toss-up between him and Bamba, so he's going into A tier. And remember, no specific order for A tier. Blessel, I'm actually gonna put into S tier. Super good for early game, good for a second team unit because she dashes to the enemy backline, deals damage, and becomes invincible for 4 seconds. So she's good for drawing attention away, especially like on bosses, because you'll get to a point where bosses like 3 hit your mon, you have enough damage to beat the boss, like in certain like chess trials and stuff like that, but they do too much damage to you. So she's good at drawing damage away from your other units. Rocking, I'm going to put into S tier, maybe right around here. So he takes reduced E damage, can reflect a projectile every 6 seconds, gains harden, has a small AoE that can stun, and he has a damage reduction skill that can reflect damage taken. Not a bad backup tank. I have him on, I think my Drillum. He's my second team backup for Drillum. When Drillum goes down, Rocking will come in and take over. Petrillion is kind of a toss-up between A and S. I think I'm gonna put her in S tier. She applies petrification to enemies, can apply harden, gives frontline allies a shield, and rock shield, which will stun enemies. Kind of like a support for like Rocking, Drillum, and Tremagon, but she could easily be an A tier, I think, though. But you can use her like at the start of the game. Actually, now that I'm looking this, I'm gonna put Tremagon right there. He is better than Drillum. Next up, we have Paniki going into Water Team, or Water Tier. She revives herself with half HP. When she dies, she inflicts slows, creates a clone of herself, but it doesn't attack, and then she damages enemies every 6 seconds. Basically just part of a starter water team. That's basically what these are, just kind of like starter teams. Then you're gonna branch off going into meta or swapping in different units from SS or S. Flicker Tree going into A tier. Bamda going into Poison tier. Her base attacks have a good chance to switch to her rage skill. She inflicts poison, heals herself based off of poison stacks on enemies with her rage skill, and then receives extra healing, which also buffs her crit chance. Kung Fape into A tier. Same with Gemshine. Ghost Drake is actually going into Water tier. She applies slow, has a summon rage skill that applies slow and prevents the target from moving or gaining rage, which is pretty cool. She also gains rage when enemies hit 750 rage, just to help top her off. Sunwolf going into Triple S tier. His passive buffs are applied to another Monmate, which is a 150% attack speed buff, 600% damage buff, 25% crit chance, 40% crit damage, and 20% lifesteal. They just won't be able to gain rage during that. The skill also summons 2 wolves that have 45% of his stats, and they get the same buff. And he also buffs his summons and himself with 30% attack and 270% HP regeneration. Really having a hard time talking today. Really good unit. He is like a damage dealer slash support. So whichever unit you want, actually we'll go over that at the end here. I did in fact not go over it at the end. So whichever unit you want to get his damage buffs, he's going to make sure they have the highest attack. It might happen naturally, or you might need to use your bento boxes just to increase their attack so they get the damage buff from Sunwolf. We got Fungakir going into A tier. Pocineg, I'm going to put her into SS tier. Her awakened skill deals damage and stuns. Her basic attack deals split damage, so E damage and P damage. And she can dash just like Flaminator does. So she's actually a pretty good damage dealer to slot into your team. Flary is going to A tier. Radiant Tail going to A tier. Star Spirit Dragon going to meta at the top. So her black hole either increases in size or pulls enemies towards it, dealing huge damage. Her passive increases her rage regeneration and harden stacks while increasing her damage to enemies that have been damaged by her, and that adds up to a big damage boost. She'll also deal damage to the highest attack enemy with her debuff. Huge damage coming from her. And like I said, when I was testing out Star Spirit Dragon versus Sbeed's damage, I couldn't quite find a good spot. I think Star Spirit Dragon performed better on average, but there was a lot of fights where like Star Spirit Dragon would be in the billions, Sbeed would be in the trillions, and they'd swap places, meaning one of them just died before the other one. But if you just straight up throw them on the guild boss, Star Spirit Dragon out damages her. So I gotta find a better spot to test, I guess. And then I was trying to do it in the tower, but like whoever got their rage skill off first would just mess up the enemy team, so they would get the most damage. Oh, and it looks like I only gave Burn 4 units. Which unit am I missing here? You know what, I'm gonna throw, where is he? Flicker Tree, I'm gonna throw him in there, so you actually got a healer. So each one of these should have a healer now. Healer, tank, 3 damage dealers. Psychofly is like we talked about. Oh, I can't get rid of her now. Damn, just ignore that. Yeah, because Psychofly is speed. So this is my tier list. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Let me know what team you're running. I'm running a burn team personally. I've got Phoenix, I've got Lavanon, Flaminator, Sunwolf, Sbeed, Star Spirit Dragon, Tremagon, Drillum, and I think that's all the units I have, including like my second team. Pretty sure Water Team is the better team out right now. Not quite sure about a Poison team though. I don't see very many people using a Poison team, which might change with our next unit because it's going to be a grass type, right? Yeah, let me know your thoughts on the tier list in the comments. Make sure you subscribe if you're still here, and I'll catch you next time. See ya.